And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm still here. We're joined by a lot of developers. It's a real, Brady Bunch situation here. So we have Bogdan from the Brawlout team in the upper right. Hello, Bogdan.
Hello.
Welcome, sir. We have Jason in the upper left. Jason's from the Icons Combat Arena team. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. We have Dan in the lower left, Rivals of Aether. Welcome, Dan.
Yeah.
And then we have Matt in the lower right. Welcome, Matt. Great to have you from the Brawlhalla team.
Thanks.
We have gathered you guys here today to talk about this genre that you're all working in. It feels like 2017 is kind of it's a pivotal year where it seems like everything's coming together and it's really establishing itself as, hey, this is a fighting game genre, a subgenre that's here to stay. Out of the gate, can we all agree, do you have a name for the genre? Is it just platform fighting game?
Yeah, who takes credit for it?
Good question. Who does?
I think Jason.
Oh, did I name the genre?
I think so.
Is that true, Jason?
I think if we're going to do credit, I remember I got mad a couple of years back because another team, Air Dash Online, was posting around that they took credit for the name Platform Fighter. So I told them to Google just the word Platform Fighter. And like the first thing at the time that came up was a thread that I made on Smashboards, which was platform fighters other than Smash. And I was like collecting a bunch of them because I was doing research on another game. So I remember like going on to their forum and I was like, did you guys come up with it? Did you really? But I don't know. I think that the term just works really well. I know we didn't actually use it much on Rivals. I saw it come back out when Wave Dash kind of came back to prominence. But I know that the Air Dash Online definitely, if anyone's going to claim it, it'll be them. They'll take credit for it.
I think we've been using that term for a long time for the genre, just like within the community as we've been talking about, like, what would we call this? But I think as more developers have creeped up that have started working in this space, we've started like actually applying the name and popularizing it. I don't think any one of us can necessarily take credit for it.
Okay, so it's not like the amount of hostility that's in there and maybe like the MOBA community constantly arguing about what the hell you even call that thing. It's like everyone's just roughly agreed, platform fighting game, that works for us.
Yeah.
It's better than Smash Clone.
Well, yeah, what do you think about that? I think that's a lot of people's first take. I'm sure every interview you guys do, every time you talk about your game, they just say like, oh, is it just a Smash clone? Do you guys see that as an offensive way to characterize it? Or what's your take on that summation of everything?
Well, it depends who it's coming from. If it's coming from a player, then it's totally fine. If it's coming from like a well-known press, it's like, I don't know, unprofessional.
Yeah.
Every genre starts that way, right? Like FPSs, Doom clones, that kind of thing.
I guess so. Yeah, so you just see it as like, years from now, that'll eventually die away, any sort of clone terminology?
Yeah, thanks to everybody in this room. The platform fighter is kind of taken on as a term. I remember being called Smash clone in every interview, and it's kind of gone away.
Yeah. Well, what is the evolution of the platform fighter? Where do you think it got its roots? What are the big milestones in the history of this genre?
I mean, up until Brawlhalla and Rivals came out, it was, the genre was mostly defined by Super Smash Brothers, right? There was a handful of games that came out along the way that tried to kind of touch on it. You had TMNT Smash Up on the Wii.
Who can forget?
And who could forget? We also had the PlayStation All-Stars, which kind of took their own spin on it, where you needed, I see Dan's eyes got really big when I said that. You needed supers to get KOs instead of knocking players off the side. So there were little touch points along the way of like developers dipping their toes into it, but I think it was kind of this crop of new developers that came along, new studios that came along that really started to say, okay, this is not just a clone. This is not just something that we're copying Smash Brothers model. We're actually going to step out and make it a full genre.
Yeah. Dan, why did your eyes light up with PlayStation All-Stars?
I think for me, like as I'm a personal developer, a big step for me that I realized was how important the damage system is to the genre, or just to how Smash Brothers works in general. Because before I made Rivals, I made a bunch of different games, and I made some like other platform fighters that were health based or had other systems, and they're just not as fun for me to play because like the way damage and knockback increases in Smash, basically builds you not only a combo system, but it prevents infinites too. And as soon as you try like different solutions to health, you start to move away from Smash, which is fine if you want to make a different type of platform fighter. But I think that's why in Rivals we stuck really close to Smash's damage system, because I really found that to be like the core. And I think all of our games actually use a damage with increased knockback, which we're seeing maybe kind of where Smash struck gold. I think they struck gold in a lot of different areas, but some of the things they hit became really important to how the genre is going to grow.
Yeah, so not necessarily always percentage on the bottom. I think like Brawlhalla changes it up a little bit and stuff like that, but you always need to have that damage concept in there for it to feel satisfying.
Yeah, just mostly for me is like to prevent infinites, because otherwise you're going to have to make a lot of designs to stop that other ways, and then you start to move away from kind of how combos feel in a game like Super Smash Bros. Melee.
Yeah. Hey, this is the basic.
Brawlhalla, do you have any problems with walls if you corner your opponents? Or you always bounce?
I guess I don't completely follow.
So, in PlayStation All-Star Battle Royale, because you had the health system, you could just put your opponent in a corner and just keep hitting him until he dies. And I saw like in Rivals and Icons, you don't have any walls. But in Brawlhalla, you have some vertical walls.
There are some wall combos that are truer than we tend to have not a lot of high damage combos. Things break pretty fast, so you do get combos that last a little longer off of the wall, but with the same kind of increased knockback with more damage, they break pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
How's the sense of community? How much have you guys interacted? Is everyone kind of in their own island in a different corner of the world, or does everybody gather together at EVO or other competitions?
Yeah, we met like at a few. We see Brawlhalla maybe at bigger ones like PAX, and we met Jason and then Super Smash Con. And for us, it's like super hard to go to the US for events, but they are always doing it right.
Yeah, so the US obviously has kind of the biggest platform fighting like competitive scene. So if you want, you can be at an event like every month, something with a couple thousand players. So I've been seeing Dan at least like once a month for the last year. As we've been traveling to events, we've been demoing our game. He's been running tournaments for his, doing character reveals and all that. So you get to know other developers in the space at least a little bit. You pay attention to what's going on with their games. We're all colleagues, we're all professionals, so I don't think there's any animosity between any of the games. I think we even, trade thoughts and, talk shop when we see each other.
What do you appreciate most about each other's games? Do you ever just check them out and say, gosh, they really nailed this, and I don't know how they get this part so right? I know it's a broad question, but is there one group there you're really passionate about another person's game in this bunch?
Well, for us, it's really encouraging looking at your successful games and seeing that you can get so many people into a platform fighter game. I'm not sure who exactly the audience is. Maybe it's like from Brazil or Europe or whatever in Brawlhalla. But so we're always like, initially, when you look at news like Marvel versus Capcom Infinite, they struggle to make the game easy because they say people don't like fighting games, but that's not really true. I mean, you always get new players pretty easy if you make a good game.
Yeah, and what makes a good game? What do you think the community wants from this genre moving forward, or even right now with your games?
Well, I can tell there's like a lot of things they want, but some of them like something similar to Smash. Some people like something really different from Smash. They don't want the same thing. So some others like a party game, others like competition, like esports and stuff. And yeah, so that's why we each have our own game.
Yeah, what do you guys think? How do you balance that line between party game versus esport?
Yeah, I think for us, we're starting to realize that competitive Smash, like the community that Rivals is focused on, the people who want to treat Smash like a fighting game, is honestly pretty niche. It's not the biggest group of players, and in some regards, I feel like we have already saturated a lot of those players on Steam, especially the players who, watch tournaments. They'll know who Mango, Hungrybox, Armada, players who are like into the scene. When I go on Twitter, it's funny. I'll like see people arguing about Smash Brothers on some Twitter thread that, some pro started. And sometimes I'll click to see, and I notice like pretty much everybody in that thread is already following me on Twitter. So then it's like, wow, these are the people I want to reach out to, but they already know Rivals, they already know what it is. So our big challenge for expansion is how do we get people who aren't as interested in Smash into it? And for us, it's almost like we're a lot later in the game than some of these other guys. So it's almost like we're kind of okay with that being a struggle for us, because just the people who are into Smash is big enough for us to be successful, because there's only 5 of us working on the game, and our measures of success are different. But if we were going to go bigger and bigger than Rival, then that would become important. Like, how do we bridge past this competitive scene? How do we get the people who like Smash casually, and then also the people who play the MOBAs and the shooters and the other games who don't want to necessarily play a fighting game, because I think fighting game players have like their brains are wired a little differently, and they're okay with a lot of punishment because it takes a long time to get good at a fighting game.
Jason and Matt, have you found a different audience with the free-to-play round? Do you feel like that brings it beyond the Smash fans, the core Smash fans?
I think we kind of started in the other direction and catered primarily to casuals, and found that core that wanted to take it more competitive. So we kind of late in the game switched in more of the other direction and had to find, how do we build the skill ceiling into it? So to answer kind of the earlier question, that's one of the things that's really nice about having all of us is some of those people, like the core Melee fans, we're never going to completely scratch that itch. So we're glad there are people that are. Otherwise, they'd just be around frustrated at us.
Yeah. You feel the same thing, Jason?
I mean, so our game's going into beta shortly here, so we're not out there like acquiring users yet. So it's hard for me to speak to like who exactly we're getting in. We do know that kind of this hardcore competitive scene is a beachhead for us. It's an audience that cares about the type of game that we're making, because we hewed a little bit closer to Melee. However, we're taking it in that kind of like free to play on the PC direction also. So, we really pay attention to what these other teams are doing and the audiences that they're reaching. And we're trying to make sure that you'll be able to play our game competitively one-on-one and feel good about it, but you'll also be able to hop in and play like a silly 4-player free-for-all in our game and have fun too. So we don't fundamentally believe that you have to make the game like shallow to make it broad. I think as long as we're creating fun characters and fun environments for them to play in, and making a game system that people can have fun playing. I mean, people had fun playing Melee casually, 4-player free-for-alls for years. Just because the tournament scene exists doesn't mean that the game system is inherently like narrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you just have this shining beacon on the hill of whenever in doubt, look to Melee. It's just the god that can't be topped.
I mean, I think that there are certainly areas to improve, right? Like, I don't think that we are a straight up quote-unquote Smash clone either.
Yeah.
But I think that our metric is like, let's take a look at each element in the game. And are we doing it either better or at least as good as Melee did or any of our competitors are, right? If we're not, like, we should stop and think about that. Because just copying something because it existed in another game is not necessarily the way to get to, a broader audience or to excite your audience to play your game.
What about just that push and pull and that balance of, I mean, the character archetypes in Melee specifically, I just want to hone in on that. It's like they've become so iconic in the fighting game community. When you're trying to make a new character, what are those discussions like for all you guys about like, okay, is this going to be the Falco character? And then we branch it off from there. Like, just designing characters, is it impossible to start any place other than constantly referencing Smash?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't do any of our characters based on any of the Melee or Smash characters. And we started off with Mortal Kombat and Castlevania, God of War, and Street Fighter. And when we went to Super Smash Con, like last year, like the first time we showed it in public, people came and said, "Which one is Fox?" Nobody, and stuff like that. Like eventually, because you have like directional attacks both on the ground and in the air, and you have jab attacks, it's similar because you attack forward, you attack backward, and they're gonna say this guy is Jigglypuff because he has 5 jumps. Wow, it's not really the same.
Yeah,
I mean,
for us.
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
For us, one thing that was funny for me for development is I noticed how small Smash Bros. Fans like their games that they know is by working on Rivals. Because initially when we designed characters, we did our whole element thing where we were like, all right, we want Fire to do this, and then we would on some characters we would pull from Smash because we wanted like a character to play a certain way. So for example, Zetterburn is basically our Spacey, and he plays a lot like Box. And when people start out, we tell them like, hey, pick up Zetterburn if you play Melee because he'll feel familiar. So then people initially, when they saw the trailers, they were like, oh, this guy has this and this from Box and this from Wolf and this from Falco. And they would like dissect the moves. And then I remember I saw people doing that on some of our trailers. So for one of our characters, Crag, I ripped an attack just straight up from Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It was like Juggernaut's heavy sweep where he like spins and smacks you with the back of his hand. And I was like, this animation's great. I'm just going to try to recreate it one for one. So I put it in the game, put it as Crag's forward tilt. And no one in the whole Reddit thread on our Smash Bros. Like said that attack was a ripoff of anything. Right? They don't even mention that. They're like, this is a brand new attack. It is so original. So for me, it's funny to think that like if we pull inspiration from Smash, immediately people are going to be like, no, like that's terrible. But if you pull it from literally anything else, the Smash fans at least will be like, that's such a good idea. So I just think that's fun from our fan base. But for us, we pull from everything. Like a lot of the original characters actually had like more from League of Legends than Smash Bros. Initially, just because I was playing League at the time and I was like, wouldn't this be cool to translate into like a 2D game from like a 3D game? So we take inspiration from all types of games.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I really appreciate, to go back to one of your earlier questions, one of the things I really appreciate about Rivals is kind of the way that Dan has explored the design space and how the characters in his game affect the terrain a lot and kind of modify the way the world, you're experiencing the stage and the world. And I think there's some really cool stuff there, but even Dan, to the best of his ability, is still going to get dinged with, oh, well, that's, this character's forward tilt and this character's down tilt or whatever. And the reality is when you're working mostly with like bipedal fighters, there's only so many ways you can throw a jab. And so if you give a character a stomp or you give them a certain type of punch or whatever, people are going to automatically just connect the dots to something they already know.
Right.
So, you take a look at a character from our game. She's big green grappler fighter, and she's based very heavily on pro wrestling and characters like Zangief. But so that people see one move that's like, oh, she's got a stomp, she's Lady Ganon, right? Like they jump straight there. So it's always a hurdle that you're going to have to like kind of climb over as a developer in this space because Nintendo owns so much of the mind share right now. But I don't know, Brawlhalla might have an easier time because they do so much weapon fight, which I think is really cool also. But the reality is, like, I having met all of these developers, except for Matt here, I've met people from his team, but having met developers from all of these teams, like, you realize that these guys are all gamers. They draw inspiration from all over the place.
Yeah.
And there's an opportunity here to keep designing within the platform space and create brand new stuff that people haven't seen before.
Matt, do you feel like Brawlhalla really stands out for the weapon usage that helps differentiate characters?
It's kind of the opposite in a way. It's not common to think of the weapons as characters rather than the characters themselves. So it was kind of hard to get people in the space of thinking them as not all clones of each other, especially with the shared unarmed kit, which I guess is a question I kind of have for you guys, if that's all right. What's the design process like coming up with the entire kit as a cohesive set?
Yeah, I guess I'll hop in just because I know for us, like character, at least our movesets is like a big part of our focus. For me, we kind of have, it's when the game was originally just me and a composer, so all the designs are just coming out of me, and there's really no one to stop me from doing whatever I wanted. So that's why like some of our characters, like Orcane was the second character we did, and he's the one with the puddle, and he like teleports to it, and he stands on it, and it does stuff, and then he turns into bubbles, and there's all this stuff going on, and it all ties into the puddle mechanic where he puts the puddle in the ground. Like Jason was saying, we kind of to the stage and then build out of there. I think for me, it's like my design brain is very much like I like to extrapolate out from stuff, which is kind of why I find myself in this genre now. Like I liked Smash Brothers. I wanted to extrapolate out Smash Brothers into my own game. So I start to go really crazy with design. And now that our team, we have a couple more programmers. Our other programmer, Trevor, works on design. He actually did the design for Claren, who was our last character we released, who's a simpler sword character. So now on our team, there's this joke that anytime we have like a Dan design is when I go over the top and I try to connect like everything. I'm like, the smash attack and the special, if you special first and then you do the smash attack and it all combines and it all like feathers out and you make this ridiculous character. And then I notice when I make a character, sometimes people online will be like, oh, I don't like the Rivals characters because there's too many gimmicks. They're not even, it's not like you're playing a fighting game, you're playing this gimmick game. So like that is what happens when I like go too far. It gets kind of key. So that's why we gave Trevor a character to make it simpler. But for me, I'm always trying to like make something that feels really new, but still has like the rules that we've established for Rivals. Because our Rivals, like our core engine, is actually simpler than Melee. Like we didn't even go as far. We don't have grabs, we don't have shields. But then on the special front and the attacks, where we like make all the characters unique.
Yeah, Bogdan, is it tough to? Oh, go ahead.
Can I ask you some questions like how many of the moves are there because they're fun, and how many are really well thought out for the combos and for the utility?
So for us, I think a lot of them, at least initially, you just go for fun because combos are going to kind of happen when you have a system anyway, and you're probably going to find some that are broken that you're going to have to fix. Like
yeah, so like when you put it in front of players, they say, hey, this is the game, we need to play this. Like we're going to adapt to the game, not adapt the game to the players, right?
Yeah, I think the trick there is if you have a system that favors combos, then you don't have to think about them too early in character design because things are going to just come out. But if you have a game system where combos aren't very likely, then it can be a bit harder to force them in later.
So I think for us, we are big fans of kind of top-down game design. So we've done some bottom-up, and we've given some talks about this at Super Smash Con, actually. Bottoms up is where you start with kind of mechanics, right? So when Dan talks about Zetterburn's kind of their space animal, we did something similar with Kid, where we had a space animal. We just kind of started with mechanics, then we layered theme on top. But we really like to start at the top with like a theme and a big idea and a feeling we want to express. And then we work our way down into the special skit and the unique like normal moves and those sorts of things. So to go back to Zana, she's a great example where we started with this idea of kind of a grappler, and we kind of started building a kit up from that, and it felt disjointed, like it wasn't working for us. And so our lead designer, Wes, grabbed the rest of the team and said, like, I'm not feeling this. It feels like kind of incoherent to me. I want to make this character feel like a complete whole. So we went back to the top and we said, okay, who is this character, right? So Zana is supposed to be this celebrity on her home world. It's like Ronda Rousey meets Taylor Swift, right? So we started with that, and we said, okay, what's the personality? We wanted somebody who was like a showman and flamboyant, and we started really keying in on this cool, like WWE-driven body splash and big command throw, and all that. We ended up deciding that her command throw, her side special, where she jumped and she grabbed you, was going to be kind of the move that we did to get around. So you get like kind of the most emotional satisfaction from picking off that move. And so we wanted kind of everything to flow out of that. And so then we started like putting pieces in place that made that part of the kit work. And then the rest of the kit kind of came together a lot easier and a lot more coherent because we started with what was that emotional core for the character.
Yeah, Bogdan, is it tough to unify everybody, especially with your game in particular, where you're pulling in guest characters like the Hyperlight Drifter character and stuff like that? Is that tough to come up with a cohesive whole for just the batch of characters?
So, like, I'm not really getting the question. Like, are you saying, like, if it's harder to do the moveset for the guest characters and to mix them with our existing ones?
Yeah, I mean, also just art style and overall, when you're mixing and matching characters from other games, is it tough to make it one unified Brawlout style?
No, like, that's really easy because we pick the characters. So it's really hard to put Cuphead in because, yeah, he's a different style. Or put, I don't know, Meat Boy. He's also like super hard. But like Hyperlight Drifter has his like huge sword and he's like a swordsman. And our next character fits in really well. And yeah, so for us, for the original characters, we picked like what they call a fighting game archetype. So we have like the grapplers, like Jason said. And then we have like a boxer that we mixed with like a Sub-Zero, and we have some freezing specials. And for the guest characters, it's even better because we just picked their signature moves, and then even if it doesn't make sense to have like a guy with a sword and shooting lasers, we can get away with it because even like we get like a shield similar to the Shine for Fox, because Hyperlight Drifter has that. So when we put all that together, we get like all sort of fun gameplay mechanics.
Yeah, Jason, are you? What do you think about that guest character strategy?
I think that it's something that people kind of come to expect in certain veins of the platform fighting genre, because Smash Brothers set the standard that like, hey, there's this diverse and eclectic cast that's coming together. I don't know that it's a strategy that Icons is going to follow anytime soon or at all. But I enjoy playing Ori in Rivals, so I'm glad that it exists. I think that as a studio, like, we're really interested in continuing to grow our IP, and we've got like, I had a meeting yesterday where we were planning out like the next batch of characters, and so we've got all these like really huge ideas that we're enjoying, and we're just not at the point right now where we feel like the guest character like makes sense for us. But I think there's some huge opportunities for other studios that are working in this space to utilize that and do it really well. Yeah. In fact, if somebody can wrest Hellboy away from WB and put it in their game, I'm all about it. On Twitter.
Yeah, it's nice the fighting genre in general. Even, the big dogs out there like, Tekken 7 has Noctis from Final Fantasy. Just that everyone's so open to like, yeah, fighting game, sure. You don't need to craft a story around this character necessarily. Go ahead and have it. It's such a fun space to work in. Hey, Matt, with Brawlhalla, what was the biggest challenge of designing the game? What was the hardest thing that you didn't expect going into the project?
Making a character base to begin with. We started with the design of every character uses every weapon, not really having character differentiation. It was kind of make your own. So even though it happened pretty early on, the right turn to now it's character based, now they have to stand apart as unique characters, was kind of a catch-up process.
And you feel like you guys got there?
Yeah, I think so. And the sort of half compromise to it, I think, is kind of what makes us special.
Yeah. Do you guys see that? Do you see a lot of fan base reaction just towards characters specifically? Like, people like to have something with a clear personality that they can really grab onto. Like Dan, I don't know, who's the star of Rivals?
Yeah, for us, I would probably say Orcane is like the fan favorite. He's like the orca dog that shifts into water. But I think we definitely see the fan base like attached to characters, and then also like draw a lot of the characters, and then also go across the line of drawing the characters. We definitely see all of that, and that's cool because like we kind of when I was designing characters, like I was inspired by characters from Super Smash Brothers that I like, And then for us, I've noticed on like Brawlhalla, like he was saying, it's cool to see trying to go about that challenge from the opposite direction than us. Because for us, like we have the character and then we're like, how do we get them to fit? And then they have to kind of, pull the character out and get it to stand out in their movesets. So I noticed that they get a ton of fan art as well. So like people get attached to these characters, and then the trick is just making them, making the designs lovable enough that people will take the character and like it enough to either buy a shirt or buy a plush, and then maybe the character introduces someone to the game. Like that's the goal, right? For example, at PAX one time, we had somebody buy an Orcane plush because her tag was Shark Kitty, and we had like an Orca dog, and she was like, "This is so close to me that I want this." So she bought it without ever seeing the game, and hopefully maybe somebody else bought the game. So that's the goal of making is that people really like and can relate to.
Yeah. Bogdan, with your work on the game, was there one challenge that really stood out to you guys? Because you guys have made so many games for iOS and mobile, and then developing this game, what's been the biggest hurdle to get over?
Well, it was super hard, developing the game after we showed it to the community. So, we spent 2 relaxing years polishing it up nicely, and then we started the early access. And after that, we spent so much time just balancing the game. Like every week or every couple of weeks, we put out balance patches because it's in early access. And we have to constantly talk to the community and see what they want. And it's I know it is taking away development time, but it's super important and we have to do it, and that's what makes the game great.
Yeah, how's that process been for you, Jason? Talking to the community and getting so much feedback.
I think that, developing out in the open, like we've been doing since basically we started Wave Dash, has been both very painful, but also added a lot of joy and given us an opportunity to do better things faster. Where we have shown off things earlier than most developers would, and we've gotten flack for it. But what we've been able to do is very quickly identify the areas where we needed to improve, and then devote resources to it at the right time to improve more quickly. So basically, since I had a 2-character demo with crummy assets, we've been taking our game to events, putting it in front of world-class players and getting their feedback. And that trend has continued all the way up through, we were at TwitchCon, we had a booth there, had people come through and play it, got more feedback, and then we were at the Summit, which is a very private invitational tournament, which Dan's done some stuff at with Rivals before. So we can get very concentrated feedback from some of the world's best players. So, it's painful when someone's like, "Hey, this thing sucks," or "I don't like that thing about your game." As a developer, you're creating stuff, and you have a tendency to kind of get precious with things. Where you're like, "Wait, it's not done yet. Don't judge me." But the more that you're willing to put that out there and get feedback from players, the faster and better you're able to improve it. So. I think I'm willing to deal with the pain if it means that in the end we deliver a game that people are really going to.
Yeah, Bogdan, do you feel like it's been worth it to be public?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sure. Because otherwise we can do the AAAs do, just do a lot of marketing and launch a game and hope for the best. But this way, people are going to get a really good network play. They're going to get balanced characters, and in the long run, it's definitely worth it because otherwise you can do a community around it.
Yeah. Hey, does anybody have any questions for each other? Anything you're dying to know from each other here now that you're all here?
Can I have an Iliesiu plushie?
Yeah, sure. Send me your address.
I'll see you at Genesis.
Yeah, all right, there we go.
Swag swap. Exactly what we're looking for.
We'll have Zetterburn plushes for Genesis, actually.
I'm stoked.
Awesome. Anything else anybody wants to say?
So when is Icons coming? The beta? Do you know? I don't know. If it's not public, don't worry.
It's not public yet. It's coming soon. We're working on polishing up a few elements of the online play before beta goes out the door. But it's coming very soon, and we're excited to finally start like getting outside players. We've already got our team plays it online every day. We have a community council that we built when we first started the studio. That's like basically trusted advisors out of the community that have done stuff like competed in tournaments or run tournaments, those sorts of things. So we've been having them play with us online also. And now that we're getting to a point where we're really happy with the online play, now it's time to.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Dan, if people wanted to play Rivals, where would they go? Where would you steer them?
So we're available on both Steam and Xbox One. We're doing like DLC now, so the game's fully out, but we're adding characters. I would definitely pick the game up on Steam because that is where like 90% of the player base is, and just grab it on Steam. And then online tournaments, you can actually, we now have it in the game. You can like click a button and you can go find on Smash GG. We have once a month, we have a big online tournament. It gets around 300 entrants. And then we also have some local events. So if you want to enter in Rivals, go to Genesis 5. That's in Oakland in January. And that should hopefully be our like biggest tournament to date. We already have our biggest prize pool yet at over $10,000. So definitely check out Genesis 5.
Awesome. Hey, Matt, Brawlhalla, where should people go?
Steam and PS4.
What about the preference between those two? How are the different communities?
Take your pick.
Take your pick. All right, Bogdan, Brawlout. You guys are out on PC early access right now, right?
Yeah, and we're launching on Switch. We're launching in less than a month.
How's that going?
The game it's been ready for a long time, like 3 weeks.
Okay.
We need the final approval from Nintendo, and that's what's been keeping us working during the weekends. And this one been really hard, but we worked on so many new features, and the game is like got a ton of cool new stuff, or even for like single player modes and online modes. You can play like on 4 Switch devices next to each other, like it's called like local multiplayer. So it's gonna be like really cool.
Oh, what an odd thing. And going through the start process at Nintendo, does Sakurai offer feedback at any point, or is that too removed?
Yeah. They gave us like you should improve this, make this better. And I was like, okay, I got it.
The Nintendo motto, make this better. Jason, Icons, if people wanted to play, where should they go?
Go to icons.gg, and sign up there for the beta. Coming soon, and you'll be able to play it on Steam.
Awesome. Dan, Matt, Bogdan, Jason, thank you so much for making time and Skyping in at the exact same time. It's a miracle we were able to get everybody together, and best luck with your games moving forward.
Hey, good luck, guys. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version and listen to new episodes airing every Thursday. We cover big games on the horizon, games that we've just reviewed. We have long-form developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So check it out every Thursday.